Hey everyone, welcome back to Anime Octopus. I'm excited to have you here. Today, we're diving into another thrilling chapter of our fanfiction series. What if Kakashi raised Naruko? Part 4. But first, a quick disclaimer. This channel is dedicated to entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. Tales of Strategy. The following morning, Homura and Koharu set out to fulfill their intentions from the previous night. They sought an audience with their longtime ally and fellow shinobi, Danzo. Their request was granted immediately, and they were ushered into his office within the headquarters of Root. Danzo sat at his desk, his hands interlocked beneath his chin, elbows resting on the chair's armrests. His gaze was steady, expectant, as he regarded the two senior council members. "You were right about Hiruzen," Homura began, concern evident in his voice. Danzo let out a quiet snort before smirking behind his folded hands. "Is that so?" "Yes." "He refused to hear us out," Koharu responded sharply, frustration clear in her tone. "He's being stubborn. Sometimes, I question whether he prioritizes the village's safety at all." "So, your discussion with Hiruzen was unsuccessful," Danzo mused. "I can't say I'm surprised. Normally, this would be a cause for frustration, but for now, retrieving the Jinchuriki can wait." Homura and Koharu exchanged bewildered glances before Koharu spoke up. "Wait? Why?" she asked, exasperated. "There are other matters that must fall into place first," Danzo stated firmly. Homura leaned forward slightly, his curiosity piqued. "May we ask what these matters are?" "As you both know, Madara has aligned himself with us. However, his loyalty is uncertain. My sources indicate that he intends to claim the Jinchuriki for himself. Before we act, I must first ensure that he is no longer a threat." "Why not secure the Jinchuriki now?" Homura questioned, leaning back in his chair. "If we gain that power first, we won't need to worry about Madara and his followers." "You're overlooking a few key details," Danzo replied calmly. "If either of us makes a move to capture the Jinchuriki, the other will see through the alliance as nothing more than a deception. That would force a confrontation, one that would weaken both sides and leave us vulnerable to the rest of the shinobi world. Additionally, if we were to engage in conflict now, we risk being overpowered and captured before our plans reach fruition. For now, we still need to rely on each other to bridge the gaps in our respective strategies." He paused before continuing. "Another obstacle is Kakashi Hatake. He has developed a strong bond with the Jinchuriki. Any attempt to take Naruko would be met with swift and formidable resistance from him. His protective instincts are unwavering, and I'm not willing to send my forces against him just yet. Let him believe he has found a family. In the end, it won't change the outcome of what we have planned." "That brings us to our final concern, Hiruzen himself," Danzo added. "I have no doubt that he will do everything in his power to protect the fourth Hokage's child. He has always been too sentimental for his own good. We suspect that the Jinchuriki is somehow influencing Hiruzen," Koharu stated, concern evident in her voice. "What if its presence affects his judgment, compromising the village's safety?" "Your concerns are not entirely unfounded, but such a scenario remains unlikely," Homura reassured her. Danzo nodded in agreement. "The Jinchuriki has shown no interest in forging connections with the village. Its only potential threat lies in its inherent power. For now, we must remain focused on the plan we have long prepared for." He then fixed them both with a firm gaze. "Homura, Koharu, I want you to continue speaking with Hiruzen. Try to persuade him to release the Jinchuriki into our care." "But why persist when we know he will never change his mind?" Homura asked, eyeing Danzo with curiosity. "Because maintaining the illusion of negotiation benefits us," Danzo explained. "If we attempt to take the Jinchuriki by force now, we will face immediate opposition. More importantly, I don't want Hiruzen suspecting my true intentions. Speak with him occasionally, not too often," so he doesn't become wary enough to send his Anbu after me. And who knows? Given enough time, he may eventually reconsider. Koharu sighed but nodded. Understood, Danzo. We will continue to engage with him when necessary. Good, Danzo said with satisfaction. Keep me informed as always. You are dismissed. Nearly 2 years had passed since the pivotal conversation between Danzo and the senior council members. In that time, the village had fully recovered from the devastating attack of the Kyuubi. Any lingering physical scars had long since disappeared, and the Hidden Leaf village was thriving once again. Its remarkable resilience had made it the envy of other hidden villages, proving its strength and determination in the face of adversity. However, these developments did not go unnoticed by Madara. From the shadows, he observed the village, his gaze filled with resentment. He frequently visited the outskirts, not out of nostalgia, but as a grim reminder of his deep-seated hatred. The village stood as a symbol of everything he despised, and he remained determined to see its downfall. Despite his distaste, he maintained contact with Danzo, though the man's presence irritated him greatly. Madara longed for the day when he would no longer have to tolerate him. Yet, patience was key. He had waited for his revenge for far too long to risk everything now by acting impulsively. Meanwhile, Kakashi stood at the edge of a cliff, surveying the landscape below with sharp, calculating eyes. Nearly 2 years had passed since the loss of his sensei, and in that time, he had matured significantly. Now standing at an impressive 6 feet tall, his unexpected growth spurt had surprised many. Along with his height came a well-defined, athletic build, lean yet powerful, honed for speed and precision. His Anbu uniform fit him well, a testament to his evolution from a talented child to a formidable warrior. His signature wolf mask concealed his face, but beneath it, his sharp features had taken on a more mature and chiseled appearance. Gone was the youthful roundness of his childhood, in its place stood the face of a seasoned shinobi. The only thing that remained unchanged was his wild silver hair, which stubbornly defied gravity, resembling a spiky, untamed bush. Interestingly, whenever he removed his mask or forehead protector, his hair would fall slightly forward, nearly covering his eyes. Kakashi had returned to active duty in the Anbu just 3 months prior. His current team, comprising Bear, Snake, and Cat, had been tasked with investigating possible enemy activity. 2 days ago, while on patrol, Kakashi, known as Wolf in the Anbu, had detected an unfamiliar scent, one that set off alarm bells in his mind. He and his team had pursued the trail, but it had vanished before they could uncover its source. Since then, all Anbu squads had remained on high alert, monitoring for any further signs of intrusion. Standing atop the cliff, Kakashi's sharp gaze swept across the terrain below. His mind raced as he pieced together fragments of memory. I know this scent. He mused. I can't be certain yet, but it reminds me of something from the night of the Kyuubi's attack. If my suspicion is correct, then whoever was responsible back then might be planning to strike again. The real question is, when and how? His expression hardened at the thought. The implications were troubling, and the possibility that this intruder was the same person from that night was unsettling. Regardless, this information needed to be reported to the Hokage immediately. Just then, his team members began returning from their search. Bear was the first to arrive. Sir, I didn't find anything in my assigned area, Bear reported, his tone tinged with disappointment. Snake was next. Same here, Captain, he said with a sigh. Everything seems perfectly normal, too normal, if you ask me. Several minutes passed before Cat returned. When he finally appeared, his voice held urgency. Captain, sir, I found what looks like the remains of a campsite. Kakashi's attention sharpened instantly. Where? He demanded. Cat gestured toward a point in the distance. About half a mile straight ahead. Without hesitation, Kakashi gave his command. Everyone, let's move. With that, the team swiftly followed his lead, disappearing into the shadows in pursuit of answers. The team moved swiftly through the trees, with Cat leading the way. Silence enveloped them as each member remained focused on their thoughts, their movements fluid and efficient. Upon arrival, Kat landed gracefully, followed closely by the others. At first glance, the area appeared undisturbed. However, as their keen eyes scanned the surroundings, subtle signs of recent activity became apparent. The ground had been swept over with a thin branch from a nearby sapling, evident by the broken and twisted limbs still attached to the young tree. Small rocks and stones had been shifted from what seemed to be a central resting spot, likely where sleeping mats had been placed. The most telling sign lay at the heart of the campsite, a faint trace of ashes and charred wood, remnants of a campfire. Though it had been carefully concealed, the trained eyes of the team recognized the signs immediately. They weren't very organized, were they? Snake remarked with amusement as she knelt by the remnants of a campfire. No, they certainly weren't. This group was sloppy, Kat responded. Kakashi surveyed the area thoughtfully. I don't think they were inexperienced in camouflage. I believe they were startled, either by someone or something. What makes you think that? Bear asked, intrigued. Kakashi's gaze sharpened. Because one of our teams was headed this way. I overheard that Badger's team sensed something unusual and decided to investigate. The trail they followed stretched 5 miles in a winding pattern, clearly an attempt to throw them off. Whoever was here didn't want to be found. Well, there's not much left to examine. Should we collect what little evidence remains and return home to file our report? Snake asked eagerly. Kakashi nodded, though he hesitated. He would have liked more time to investigate, but their shift was over. Crow's team would continue from here. Besides, there was someone waiting for him at home, a lively 2-year-old bundle of energy with golden hair. There was no telling what his little sibling had gotten into or how much mischief she had caused the Ninken. With the warm spring sun above them, the team wrapped up their mission and made their way home. Naruko was in the playroom with the Ninken, giggling as she played. Despite her growing drowsiness, she fought against sleep. She knew her big brother would be home soon, and the excitement alone kept her wide awake. Guruko, one of the Ninken, tried to coax her into napping. Rest for a bit, pup. We'll wake you when Kakashi gets home. But Naruko shook her head stubbornly. She loved it when her brother returned. Kakashi was usually serious and composed, but the moment he saw her, his expression would soften. He'd even lower his mask, something Naruko knew was a rare privilege. No one else ever saw Kakashi's face, and though she didn't fully understand why, she cherished the fact that he never hid it from her. Humming a soft tune, Naruko swayed gently. It was a lullaby her brother used to sing when she was a baby, one that always comforted her. Kakashi's voice, deep and soothing, had a way of making all her worries fade. I think someone just arrived, Pakun announced. That was all Naruko needed to hear. She jumped to her feet and raced toward the front door, the Ninken close behind her. As Kakashi stepped inside, his sharp gaze immediately landed on the small girl eagerly waiting for him. For a moment, he just took in the sight of her. At just over 2 years old, Naruko barely reached his knees. Her bright blonde hair was even more vibrant than their father's, sticking up in soft, messy spikes, and her deep blue eyes sparkled with excitement. She reminded him so much of Minato, except for the 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. Each time Kakashi looked at her, he was reminded of how far they had come. How many nights had he lain awake, questioning whether he was doing enough? How often had he doubted himself? And yet, 2 years later, they were still standing strong, despite the challenges. Welcome home. Naruko chirped excitedly. Kakashi knelt down, holding out his arms. Come here, little one. Naruko didn't hesitate, throwing herself into his embrace, her small arms wrapping tightly around his neck. I missed you, Kashi, she murmured bashfully. I missed you too, little one. Kakashi reached up and pulled his mask down, giving her the rare sight of his full face. Kashi worked hard today? She asked curiously. Yep. I was busy making sure our village stays safe. That must make Kashi tired. A little bit, Kakashi admitted with a chuckle. He lifted Naruko into his arms and carried her toward the kitchen, the Ninken padding along beside them. "So, little one, what should we have for dinner tonight?" he asked as he settled her into her high chair. Naruko's eyes sparkled mischievously. "Kashi is tired. So me want to eat out. Me want to see village. Please?" Kakashi froze mid-motion, adjusting the high chair tray. He knew this moment would come eventually, but he hadn't expected it so soon. Kakashi had been contemplating for quite some time whether it was best to continue leaving Naruko at home whenever he ran errands in the village or if he should start bringing her along. Whenever he went alone, he always used a transformation jutsu to alter his appearance. In the past, when Naruko was still an infant, he had taken her with him on occasion, always ensuring that they were both disguised before entering the village. However, Naruko was growing older and more perceptive. If she noticed Kakashi using a transformation jutsu before they ventured into the village, she would undoubtedly ask why. She had already been curious about his mask, questioning him about it. At the time, Kakashi had simply told her that he couldn't explain just yet but might be able to when she was older. But this situation was different. It wasn't just about him, it involved Naruko as well. Kakashi wrestled with how much he should tell her. He didn't want to keep her in the dark, yet he also didn't want to burden her with a truth she might not fully understand. What could he possibly say? "Well, you see, Naruko, we disguise ourselves because the village isn't very welcoming toward us." That wouldn't be an easy conversation. People were already aware that Naruko was in his care, and he knew he couldn't avoid the issue forever. Sooner or later, he would have to confront it, whether he was ready or not. Kakashi carefully hooked the tray onto the chair once more. When he was done, he looked into Naruko's eyes and spoke gently. "Naruko, I promise we'll go to the village together soon. I'm just not ready yet, okay?" Naruko's face fell as she asked in a small, uncertain voice, "Did I do something bad? Is Kashi mad at me?" "No, not at all," Kakashi reassured her. "You didn't do anything wrong. I just need a little more time, okay?" "Okay." Kakashi wiped away the tear that slid down his little sister's cheek. Deep in his heart, he felt a wave of guilt for making her feel this way. He knew then that he couldn't handle everything alone. He needed guidance, someone to talk to about their situation. And so, before heading to the refrigerator, Kakashi made up his mind. First thing in the morning, he would go see the Hokage. The sun had just begun its ascent, casting soft golden hues over the horizon. Kakashi was already awake, thanks to Naruko, who had left her room the moment she woke up and made a beeline for her big brothers. Since Kakashi always left his door slightly open, just in case Naruko needed him or if he heard her having nightmares, she had no trouble pushing it open. She ran straight to his bed, climbing up with some effort before crawling closer to where Kakashi lay. When gentle pats on his face didn't stir him, she leaned over and carefully lifted one of his eyelids. "Kashi, are you awake in there?" At those words, Kakashi could no longer pretend to be asleep. He had actually woken the moment he heard Naruko's little footsteps, but he had kept his eyes closed just to see what she would do. Now, he couldn't help but chuckle as he wrapped an arm around her. "Yeah, little one, I'm up now." Naruko giggled and hugged him back, the warmth of their embrace lingering until her stomach let out a loud growl. That sent them both into another fit of laughter. Kakashi sat up, positioning Naruko on his lap. "All right, what do you want for breakfast today?" "Pancakes!" Naruko exclaimed excitedly. "Pancakes it is," Kakashi agreed. "Yay, we." "But first," Kakashi interrupted playfully, "someone needs a bath. I think I smell a stinky diaper." Naruko looked up sheepishly. "The poop came out." "That it did, little one. That it did." Kakashi scooped her up, and they made their way to the bathroom. After a refreshing shower, Kakashi grabbed a towel to dry Naruko off, only for her to take off running around his room. With a playful grin, Kakashi gave chase, Naruko squealing with laughter as she tried to evade him. Finally, he caught her and wrapped her snugly in the towel. She wriggled and giggled, but Kakashi held her close. I caught a fish, he announced, playfully blowing raspberries on her belly. Naruko shrieked with laughter as he carried her to her room. Once there, Kakashi placed her on the bed and went to fetch a fresh diaper. But as he reached for it, he glanced back at Naruko and said, "You know, I think it's about time I teach you how to use the toilet." "Potty?" Naruko tilted her head curiously. Kakashi nodded. "That's right. You want to be a big girl now, don't you?" "Yes," she declared enthusiastically. "Well, big girls use the potty." Naruko's face lit up with determination. "I don't want a diaper. I want to learn to use the potty." Kakashi smiled and gently corrected her, "That's right. You should say, I don't want a diaper." Naruko nodded seriously. "Okay. I don't want a diaper." "That's my girl," Kakashi said, ruffling her hair. "All right then, let's get started." "That's better, little one. Now, let me get dressed first, and then I'll grab the potty and training pants that Grandpa Hokage got for you." "Yes. I'm a big girl now." Naruko cheered, racing back into the bathroom. Kakashi quickly got dressed before retrieving the small training toilet and the special training pants. Thankfully, Naruko caught on quickly, much to Kakashi's relief. He had heard plenty of stories about how challenging potty training could be, with little ones keeping their caregivers on their toes. But patience was the key, and Kakashi was determined to support Naruko through the process. Once the lesson was complete and Naruko was in her training pants and dressed, Kakashi carried his little sister downstairs. At the bottom, he gently set her down, and she eagerly scurried off toward the kitchen. Breakfast was prepared and enjoyed, and afterward, the dishes needed washing. Naruko was eager to help, so Kakashi set up a chair beside him at the sink, carefully placing her on it. Handing her a small towel, he let her dry the dishes while he washed. With the kitchen now clean, they made their way to the living room. Kakashi decided to call upon his loyal hounds. With a quick summoning, a puff of smoke filled the room, and 6 friendly dogs appeared. "All right, everyone, listen up," Kakashi's voice took on a firm and serious tone. "I need to make a quick trip to the Hokage Tower. I won't be gone for more than an hour. While I'm away, I expect all of you to stay inside the house. No one is to leave until I return. Is that understood?" Everyone, including Naruko, immediately stood at attention and responded in unison, "Yes." "Good. Pakun, you're in charge while I'm gone." "Don't worry, boss. Everything will be just as you left it," the small ninja hound assured him. "Glad to hear it. I'll be back soon," Kakashi said before crouching down to give Naruko a reassuring hug. Then, in a swift puff of smoke, he vanished. As he moved swiftly through the trees, Kakashi's thoughts raced even faster. He carefully considered how he would approach the important discussion he needed to have with the third Hokage. It was fortunate that today was his day off. He wouldn't have been able to focus on this conversation if he had been on a mission. He needed complete clarity for matters like these. If Naruko had asked her question about visiting the village earlier that morning, right before he was due for duty, it would have weighed on his mind all day. And in their line of work, distractions could be dangerous, not just for himself, but for his entire team. However, her question wasn't something he could ignore. It wasn't just about explaining things to her in a way she could understand, but also about facing his own memories and experiences. Kakashi had seen firsthand how quickly some villagers could jump to conclusions, letting their emotions cloud their judgment. It always baffled him how so many refused to question situations before taking drastic action. The idea of innocent until proven guilty rarely seemed to apply. Instead, people followed rumors blindly, making poor decisions that reflected badly on the village as a whole. And more often than not, the village council played a key role in fueling these misguided sentiments. But things needed to change. For Naruko. For himself. As Rei had once told her mother, neither of them had done anything to deserve the way they were treated. Kakashi wasn't sure how he would bring about that change, but he was determined to find a way. At the very least, they deserved to live in peace, free from unnecessary hostility. Lost in thought, Kakashi soon reached the outskirts of the village. This time, he didn't bother disguising himself with a transformation jutsu. He was here alone on official business, there was no need to conceal his identity. More importantly, Naruko wasn't with him, so he didn't have to worry about her safety right now. It had been a long time since he had walked these streets openly. In fact, he hadn't done so since the tragic disgrace of his father. He wasn't sure why he was doing it now. Maybe he needed to prove to himself that he could. That way, when the time came to bring Naruko with him, he wouldn't hesitate or falter. He didn't want to show any sign of uncertainty in front of her. Or maybe, deep down, he felt like he had to face this. For years, whispers had followed him, branding him as the son of a failure. He had fought against those voices for a time, but when his father, unable to withstand the weight of the village's judgment, gave up, Kakashi was left to bear that burden alone. Doubt had crept into his heart back then. Was what they said true? Had his father truly been weak? Had he made the wrong choice? The village had certainly believed so, and they had never let Kakashi forget it. For the longest time, he had struggled with those thoughts. Losing the people he cared about had only deepened his doubts. But now, for Naruko's sake, he knew he had to break free from that mindset. Change wasn't easy. But for her, he would find a way. She was nearing the tower now, just a little farther, and she would arrive. Her senses remained sharp, fully aware of her surroundings. Now just a short distance away, she was almost there. Nearby, a man wearing a full-length yukata stood outside a restaurant, engaged in conversation with a friend. As Kakashi approached, the man briefly glanced away from his companion, his expression shifting. With a subtle motion, he gestured toward Kakashi. Well, if it isn't the so-called troublemaker making an appearance today, he remarked with a smirk. His friend chuckled, deciding to chime in. Yeah, looks like someone's lost on their way to an interesting gathering. Another villager joined in, shaking his head. Maybe it's best if they just kept to themselves. Kakashi remained silent, increasing his pace. However, the villagers were just getting started. 3 of them stepped in front of him, attempting to block his path. Without hesitation, Kakashi maneuvered around them, but more villagers quickly moved to obstruct him. Hey, where do you think you're going, outcast? One villager sneered with clear disdain. No one gave you permission to just walk away. The remark came from the largest of the group now blocking his way. Frustration stirred within Kakashi. He had the ability to overpower them effortlessly, yet he was restraining himself to avoid unnecessary conflict. The irony was not lost on him. Deciding not to waste any more time, he prepared to use the body flicker technique to escape the situation. Just as he began forming the hand signs, the large man in front seized his hands, preventing the jutsu. Another villager swiftly moved behind him and struck the back of his head. From that moment, everything became a blur. Kakashi found himself engaged in a fight, relying solely on taijutsu. Though he refrained from inflicting serious harm, he swiftly defended himself against the aggressive crowd. Some onlookers shouted insults, while others tried to intervene or hurried away, unwilling to be involved. A particularly reckless villager attempted to attack Kakashi from behind, raising a newly purchased shovel from a nearby hardware store. Before the villager could bring it down, Kakashi's fist struck his stomach with precision and force. The man gasped sharply, his breath escaping in a rush as he dropped both the shovel and himself to the ground. Another villager made an attempt but was met with a swift roundhouse kick. He was unconscious before he even hit the ground. Before the situation could escalate further, a team of jounin arrived, immediately working to de-escalate the confrontation. 2 of them approached Kakashi cautiously, recognizing the intensity in his gaze. One of them spoke in a calm, measured tone. "All right, Kakashi, take it easy. We're here to help you out of this situation. Just breathe." Kakashi remained in a defensive stance, his arms raised, fists clenched. Though his breathing was steady and controlled, his heightened awareness showed he was still on high alert. "Look at me, Kakashi. His focus shifted toward the Jounin addressing him. Good. Now, take a slow, deep breath in. And exhale just as slowly. Following the instructions, Kakashi struggled to suppress his emotions but complied. That's it. You're doing great, the Jounin assured him with a small, reassuring smile. Seizing the moment, his partner chimed in. Hey, Kakashi, that was impressive. You managed to defend yourself without causing any serious harm. That's exactly what I'd expect from my eternal rival. Kakashi's gaze shifted. Guy. Yes, Asuma? Not now, please. You'll only provoke her to start reacting again. And this time, it might be directed at us. The Hokage listened intently, his expression serious as he absorbed the report detailing the recent events in the village. His son, Asuma, stood before him, recounting what he had witnessed. Beside him were Might Guy and Anko, both providing their own observations with precision. As they spoke, the third Hokage occasionally glanced toward Kakashi, who remained silent, offering no input until directly addressed. When he did speak, his words were calm, factual, and delivered with an unwavering composure. The Hokage exhaled deeply, realizing that more decisive actions needed to be taken to ensure that one of his most skilled shinobi could move freely through the village without unnecessary complications. Truthfully, this issue had never crossed his mind before, primarily because Kakashi had long since adopted the habit of traveling via rooftops, avoiding the streets altogether. Moreover, with the numerous responsibilities that came with his position, it was easy for certain matters to slip through the cracks. Though he wouldn't use that as an excuse, it remained a reality. Once Kakashi concluded his account of the incident, the third, who had been steadily puffing on his pipe throughout the conversation, quietly extinguished it, setting it aside in the tray. His voice was firm yet measured as he spoke. Thank you for your reports. You three are dismissed. With a slight wave of his hand, he signaled Asuma, Anko, and Guy to take their leave. The trio complied, exiting the room with minimal noise as the door shut softly behind them. Turning his full attention to Kakashi, the Hokage leaned forward slightly in his chair, resting his arms on the desk. His hands were clasped beneath his chin, his expression one of genuine concern. Kakashi, I want you to go over the events once more, he said, his voice calm but expectant. Kakashi blinked, his posture remaining unchanged. I'm not sure I understand, Lord Third. I have already provided a full explanation, he replied, a note of uncertainty in his otherwise composed tone. I understand why the villagers acted as they did. But what I want to know is what happened with you. Why did you walk through the middle of the village? For as long as I've known you, you've always preferred the rooftops unless a mission required otherwise. So I'll ask again, what exactly happened? Kakashi hesitated, unsure of how to respond. He wasn't entirely certain of the answer himself. But the Hokage wasn't looking for uncertainty, he wanted the truth. And the truth was. Naruko asked if she could see the village. Kakashi's voice was steady, but there was an underlying weight to his words. Ever since Sensei and Kushina entrusted her to me, I've done everything in my power to keep her safe. When Rei could no longer be with us, I had to venture into the village alone to gather food and supplies. At times, I could leave Naruko with my Ninken, who would watch over her for short periods. Since she was an infant then, she would usually be asleep during my trips. But as she has grown, she's nearly 3 now, she has become more observant, more aware of her surroundings and my actions. If I bring her into the village under a disguise, she will question it. She will wonder why we can't simply walk through as ourselves. And I don't know how to explain it to her, not in a way that doesn't sound as harsh as the reality itself. Kakashi's voice carried the emotions that his masked face concealed. The third Hokage, listening intently, could hear the sorrow and regret woven into his words. He could feel the burden Kakashi carried. As Kakashi finished speaking, the Hokage closed his eyes in deep contemplation. Understanding that patience was necessary, Kakashi remained silent. After several moments, the third Hokage opened his eyes, now filled with clarity and purpose. His next words took Kakashi by surprise. Kakashi, I want you to bring Naruko into the village. Kakashi's instinct was to protest, but the Hokage raised a hand to stop him. Please, hear me out, he said. Kakashi gave a reluctant nod. Bring Naruko into the village. I will arrange for a group to accompany you, people you can trust. Walk through the village with them. They will serve as a protective presence for both you and Naruko. Take her to the park with the largest playground. I will ensure that some shinobi, ones with children of their own, are there. This way, Naruko will have the chance to meet others her age in a safe and welcoming environment. After that, take her to a restaurant for lunch. This will allow her to experience the village without the weight of unnecessary knowledge just yet. She is still too young to bear the burden of her identity or the challenges you've faced. That time will come, but not now. Kakashi's expression remained wary. When you say a group of people, am I familiar with them? Yes, the third assured him. They are your peers, but unlike most, they are individuals I trust to be by your side. Please, sir, tell me who they are. Without hesitation, the Hokage listed the names. Asuma, Kurenai, Gai, Anko, Genma, Reidu, and even Ibiki. Kakashi recognized that the Hokage's confidence in these individuals was unwavering. I don't. Kakashi, the third interrupted, his voice firm yet understanding. You cannot keep Naruko hidden away in the forest forever. She is not a delicate princess locked in a tower. Sheltering her too much will only hinder her growth. She deserves to experience the village, her home, just like any other child. I understand your point, sir, but I'm not sure I can take that risk. What if it doesn't work out? What if they fail us or refuse to help when the villagers react negatively toward us? I've always been on my own. I've always had to rely on myself when facing the enemy or the villagers. I could never fully trust my team, not any of the ones I've been on. The only exception was when I was on Team 7. Naruko means the world to me. I can't afford to lose her just because people decide that dealing with the villagers isn't worth the trouble. Not when it's the traitor in the Jinchuriki that everyone is up in arms about. The third Hokage leaned back in his chair, taking a slow, thoughtful drag from his pipe. Kakashi, these shinobi I've mentioned are different from the rest of the shinobi in this village. When it comes to you, they've always wanted to work alongside you. Kakashi's eyes narrowed in frustration. Sir, that doesn't mean much to me. A lot of people claim they want to work with me, but only because they want to see me fail. They're waiting for the moment when I stumble, just to boast about how the so-called prodigy couldn't complete the mission with honor. They'd love to say that I'm just like my father. They'd love to label me a traitor and a coward. Kakashi's fists clenched at his sides, and the tension in his left eye was palpable. Kakashi, you mentioned taking a risk earlier. What would you say if I told you that these people have been trying to get close to you for a long time now? Not as your enemies, but as your friends. They truly want to be your friends, Kakashi. They've seen how others in the village have treated you, and it angers them. It's hard for them to watch these wrongs unfold. I know this because I've seen the way they look at you, watching, concerned, as others mistreat you. And if you think back on it, you'll realize that they've defended you countless times. It's fear that holds you back, Kakashi. We both know this to be true. Let me ask you this, Kakashi. You trust me, don't you? Have I ever steered you wrong with any decisions that affected you personally? Kakashi shook her head in response. Have I ever led you astray when I brought Rei Sarahara into your life? Once more, Kakashi shook her head. Then why can't you trust me now? Silence filled the room for a moment. The third Hokage could see the internal struggle raging inside his ninja. He patiently waited for Kakashi to process it all and give her answer. Kakashi stood with her head lowered, her fists clenched, and her eyes shut. She wanted so desperately to reach out again and try forming new connections. She had been alone for so long, with no true friends or support. Her need for companionship had only grown stronger since the loss of her mentor and the responsibility of caring for her younger brother. Rei had been the closest thing to a friend Kakashi had had for a long time. But even Rei couldn't stay. At least Rei was still alive. Kakashi squeezed her head tighter, still battling her own thoughts. I know what the Hokage is saying is the truth. But the risk feels too high. I've never been able to keep the people who were precious to me. There were so few of them to begin with. And then, when I thought I had nothing left, Sensei entrusted me with his son, my little brother. I realized I still have someone precious in this world. If anything were to happen to Naruko, I don't know if I could go on. There's just been so much loss. But I can't keep Naruko locked away because I'm afraid of losing her. The Hokage is right. Keeping her isolated will only hurt her in the end. A deep sigh escaped Kakashi as she stood in front of the Hokage. The third could tell the decision had been made. Kakashi took another deep breath before looking up at the Hokage. Sir, I will accept your offer, Kakashi said quietly. You're right. I can't keep Naruko hidden from the world just because I still live in the past. It's not healthy for either of us, but especially for her. I admit, though, that I'm scared to let her face the world. I don't want her to feel alone or hurt or frightened. I've been all those things. I want something better for Naruko. The Hokage smiled a small, sad smile. Something better, you both will have soon. I promise you. It was decided that the group would meet with Kakashi and Naruko in 4 days. This time would allow for preparations to be made and for the other ninjas who had agreed to meet them at the park with their children. The Hokage worked tirelessly, though not alone. His son, Asuma, was also instrumental in the preparations. Asuma knew the owner of a local pizza parlor, one of only 3 in the village. This particular one was his favorite, not only for the food but also because he enjoyed chatting with the young owner, a man in his 20s who had inherited money from a late grandmother. He had immediately known what to do with the funds and opened Shinji's Pizza, a cozy spot with several tables, 2 large brick ovens, and plenty of space to create delicious meals. Ceiling fans were scattered throughout the restaurant, not just to keep the air cool but also to carry the irresistible scent of freshly baked pizza. Large windows let in natural light, and the walls were adorned with plants and hanging baskets. Shinji had created a welcoming atmosphere that made customers feel at home. Asuma knew it would be the perfect place to bring his soon-to-be friend and little brother. The day arrived sooner than Kakashi had anticipated. He had shared the news with Naruko immediately after his conversation with the Hokage. Naruko was thrilled by the news, and Kakashi wished he could share in the excitement. However, he wasn't about to back out now. He recalled their conversation. Hey, Naruko, come here for a second. I've got something important to tell you, Kakashi said. Naruko, who had been coloring in her book, looked up eagerly. What is it, Kashi? She asked, her deep blue eyes brimming with curiosity. Well, remember when I mentioned I had to talk to the Hokage? Kakashi began. Yes. Well, it turns out we were discussing you. Naruko stood up from the floor and walked over to Kakashi, who was seated at his desk. About me? Why? She asked. You asked if you could go see the village, right? Kakashi said, waiting for her nod. So, the Hokage is going to arrange a day out for us. Kakashi had almost said friends, but wasn't sure how this outing would unfold, so he simply mentioned some people. Really? Naruko's face lit up. We can actually go, Kashi? Yes, in 4 days, we'll be heading into the town, Kakashi confirmed. Wow, I've always wanted to see where everyone else lives. Hey, Kashi, did you ever live in the village? Kakashi paused for a moment, memories rushing back. Yeah, Naruko, I did once. Why don't we live there now? Did I do something wrong? Naruko asked, her voice soft with concern. Kakashi immediately reached out and pulled her into a hug. He couldn't bring himself to answer her questions. He hated seeing that sadness on her face, it wasn't a look that belonged on someone as vibrant as Naruko. Searching for the right words, Kakashi finally spoke. No, Naruko, you didn't do anything wrong. The Hokage just wanted to give us a peaceful home out here. It's a place where you have plenty of room to run, play, and enjoy yourself. And you love playing with the Ninken and running in the woods. Kakashi hoped that would put her at ease. I do love the Ninken. And the woods are so much fun too. But it would be so cool to play with other kids and visit them in the village. Well, we're going to visit the village and meet some new people, Kakashi said, smiling. Really? Yep, really. Naruko couldn't contain her excitement and started jumping around, giggling like any child would when they're thrilled. Kakashi couldn't help but smile as he watched her happiness. But then, the energy seemed to stop, and Naruko stood in front of him, her face a little red as she squirmed, one hand holding herself and the other rubbing the back of her head sheepishly. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruko, do you need to use the bathroom? Her face flushed a deeper shade of red as she giggled. Yeah, I think I jumped too much, ha ha ha. That was a wake-up call for Kakashi. He realized just how much this outing meant to Naruko, and he couldn't back out now. He hurried to get them both ready. After finishing their breakfast, Naruko sitting in her booster seat, with Kakashi across from her, they quickly showered. Since Naruko was a bit of a messy eater, Kakashi had her wear her training pants, keeping her clothes clean until it was time to change. Once they were finished eating, Kakashi cleaned up the dishes and helped Naruko out of her booster seat. They went upstairs to the bathroom to wash her face, chest, and hands, making sure she was neat and tidy. Checking the clock on Naruko's bedroom wall, Kakashi saw it was still 9:15, giving them plenty of time. He had packed a small backpack for her the night before, filled with all the essentials, training pants, hand wipes, a towel, and a bottle of water. With the backpack in hand, Kakashi led Naruko downstairs and into the playroom. Naruko eagerly began playing with her toys while Kakashi sat at his desk, reading through a new report scroll about one of the patrols. The report described an Onbu team led by a skilled operative known as Lion. Lion and her team had been investigating a lead provided by Wolf's team, which had discovered an abandoned campsite. Through their analysis, they were able to confirm that Badger's team was pursuing a group with suspicious and harmful intentions. This deduction was made after finding 5 other campsites that resembled the one initially reported by Wolf's team. As Kakashi read through the report, his eyes widened upon reaching the next section. The 5th campsite was where Lion's team had encountered the suspicious group. At 1,500 hours, while Lion's team was patrolling near a waterfall, Horse, one of the operatives, sensed a faint pulse of chakra coming from a path about half a mile away. The team immediately set out to investigate. They approached the location with stealth and speed, but the leader of the group they were tracking sensed their presence and made a quick escape with their followers. When Lion and her team reached the camp, they only saw a figure vanish into what appeared to be a swirling vortex, clearly indicating the use of a special jutsu to facilitate their rapid retreat. Upon inspecting the campsite, they found that most of it had been left intact, with only a few important items abandoned. Among these items were a detailed map of the area surrounding the Leaf Village, highlighting key landmarks such as caves and waterfalls. There were also binoculars left behind. Based on these findings, it is likely that the group is a scouting party that has had prior encounters with Onbu. This was the 5th attempt they made to infiltrate the area, and they were finally discovered. There is a strong possibility that they may return in the future. Therefore, it is recommended to increase patrols in this area and to enlist additional support, such as summons, to help search the surrounding woods around the Leaf Village. Kakashi gently placed the scroll back on his desk. His instincts were telling him that the person playing hide and seek in the woods with the Onbu might be the same one responsible for the QB attack. No matter how hard he tried to consider other possibilities, the feeling lingered, stubborn like a determined bulldog. Kakashi snapped out of his thoughts when he felt a hand on his arm. Looking down, he saw Naruko gazing up at him, her expression filled with concern. "Kashi, is everything all right? I tried calling you 3 times, but you didn't answer." Kakashi smiled warmly and gently lifted Naruko into his lap. "Sorry, little one. I got lost in my thoughts. What's on your mind?" I think it's time to go?" Naruko said, glancing at the clock on the desk. Kakashi frowned, realizing it was already 9:45. They'd need to use a teleportation technique to reach the outskirts in time. Sorry, Naruko, I got us a little behind. Can you go down the hall and use the bathroom before we leave? But I don't have to go right now. Just try, okay? Do it for your big brother. Okay. Naruko sighed, but Kakashi could tell she'd do as asked. He set her down, and she trotted off to the bathroom. A moment later, she came running back down the hallway, calling for Kakashi. Kashi, help me, please. Kakashi paused mid-stride as he looked at his little sister, a grin spreading across his face. Whoa, looks like we've got some wardrobe issues, he chuckled. The pants won't go up. My legs are freezing. Naruko responded, a hint of frustration in her voice. Hold on, they're just twisted a bit, Kakashi said with a laugh as he quickly helped her. Once he had her clothes sorted, they went back to the bathroom to wash up. Afterward, they gathered what they'd need for the trip. Kakashi grabbed his backpack, and Naruko took her favorite plushie fox. They made their way outside, where Kakashi locked the door. Then, they teleported to the outskirts, where the rest of the group was waiting. Kakashi walked toward them slowly, holding Naruko's hand. She gripped her plushie tightly, a small smile on her face. The group watched as they approached, some offering smiles, while others gave nods of approval. It was Guy who broke the silence, striking his signature dramatic pose. Welcome, my eternal rival. He exclaimed with a megawatt smile, nearly blinding Kakashi and Naruko. Are you ready for some long overdue youthful fun? Guy, could you tone it down a bit? You're scaring them, and we haven't even made it into the village yet, Anko remarked sarcastically. Yeah, Guy, you're ruining the first impression, Genma added with a playful whine. It's already too late for that, Asuma said thoughtfully, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Kurenai, who stood beside him, let out a soft giggle at his words. Guy, undeterred, turned to his group and exclaimed with even more enthusiasm, My esteemed colleagues, we should never stifle the youthful passion inside us. Let's express it while we can. Well, I think we've heard enough about youth for one day, Ibiki said, raising an eyebrow. Let's get going before Kakashi and Naruko decide to turn back. I think the show's already started, Ibiki. But yes, let's get moving, Reidu added, watching as Kakashi shrugged, confused, while Naruko looked up at him with a questioning expression. The group made their way through the village without much difficulty. The villagers observed them quietly, offering no words. Some continued with their daily routines, while others couldn't help but cast disapproving looks. These glares were particularly directed at Kakashi and Naruko. However, as they were accompanied by the rest of the group, the glares had minimal impact. Everyone in the group could sense the tension, and Kakashi, in particular, was highly aware of the attention they were receiving. He remained vigilant, ensuring Naruko stayed close as they walked. Naruko, though noticing the unfriendly stares, couldn't quite understand why people were looking at them in such a way. Being young, she soon shrugged off the attention, as it never lasted long. Look, Kashi, look! Naruko exclaimed, pointing eagerly. It's the Hokage faces. And there's Grandpa too. I see, Naruko. Maybe we can visit there sometime. You'll be able to see the entire village from up there. Can we stand on top of their heads? Naruko asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Anko turned and answered with a smile, Yep, you sure can. Wow! Can we go up there now? Sorry, little one, but we have some important people to meet at another special place. We'll visit the Hokage faces another time, Kakashi replied apologetically. A special place? Yes, Naruko, it's a place I think you will really like, Kurenai added, speaking up for the first time. Genma, who had been walking on Kakashi's left, absent-mindedly shifted his senbone around in his mouth. Hey, doesn't it feel like we forgot something before we started walking through the village? Nope. I can't think of anything unusual, my youthful friend, Guy answered cheerfully, walking ahead of Kakashi. We forgot to introduce ourselves, Ibiki said thoughtfully. Oh, my bad. Sorry, Kakashi, and you too, Naruko. I'm Genma. The one standing beside you is Ibiki, Genma said, as Ibiki nodded at Naruko. The one in front of you is Anko. Watch out for her, she has a thing for snakes. Genma quickly ducked as Anko playfully swung at him. Don't listen to him, kid. I'm not that bad, Anko said with a grin. Continuing the introductions, Genma pointed at the man with the deep scars on his face. That's Reidu behind you. Reidu smiled warmly at Naruko when she turned around to face him. The elegant lady walking with the handsome guy next to her is Kurenai and her boyfriend Asuma. Hey, we're not boyfriend and girlfriend yet, Asuma blurted out, a little embarrassed. Genma just shrugged as though it didn't matter. And last but not least, here's Guy. No real introduction needed for him. Honestly, Anko teased, lightly hitting Guy on the arm. Guy laughed in response, his usual good-natured spirit in full force. As they walked through the village, they turned right onto a quieter street, leading them to the largest park in the Leaf Village. The moment Naruko's eyes saw the park, her excitement grew. She had never been to a park before, and this one had so many things to do. There were at least 6 swing sets nearby, multiple slides, and several monkey bars. The park even had a giant sandbox. Scattered drinking fountains could be seen around the area, and several walking trails led into the woods behind the park. The best part was that there were other kids there, and they were around her age. Naruko immediately wanted to run over and meet them, but she also noticed adults there, which made her feel a little shy. Kakashi gently guided her deeper into the park. A woman in a long light blue dress noticed them and walked over to greet them. Soon enough, Naruko was free to join the other children, happily running after them. Kakashi sat on a park bench with the other ninja. They chatted and joked while keeping a careful eye on Naruko. Kakashi was surprised to see how his fellow ninja maintained a vigilant watch on his little sister while still being fully engaged in their conversation. Kakashi thought back to what Minato had told him before his passing, when people offer friendship, don't immediately turn it down. He knew Anko well, as they had worked together in the Anbu team. Ibiki, too, had been a part of that team. Guy, on the other hand, was someone Kakashi had encountered frequently, with the green-clad warrior constantly challenging him. But he didn't know much about any of them, where they lived, what they liked to eat, or even their trivial preferences. Yet, despite not knowing these personal details, one thing was certain, they were genuine. As Kakashi watched his comrades as they walked through the village, he could see it in their faces, they weren't afraid of standing up to the villagers. They almost looked as if they were ready for a challenge, should one arise. Kakashi felt a deep sense of trust. The Hokage hadn't lied to him this time. His instincts, honed over years as a ninja, told him that they were trustworthy. And a ninja's instincts were everything, they kept them and their comrades alive. Soon, the afternoon arrived, and Naruko returned to Kakashi as the others began to head home. Their parents were calling them, eager to enjoy lunch together. Naruko's stomach was growling, reminding her that it was time to eat. Without wasting any time, she rushed back to her older brother. Kakashi knelt down, pulling a towel from his backpack to gently wipe Naruko's face. Are you ready for lunch now? Kakashi asked. Yeah, my tummy is talking to me, Naruko replied, as if to confirm her words, her stomach rumbling once more. Anko chuckled, saying, your stomach speaks my language, kid. All right then, let's go eat. I've got a spot reserved for us, Asuma replied. I think you're going to like it. The group gathered together and made their way to Shinji's Pizza. As they arrived, the delicious aroma of freshly baked pizza greeted them, drifting out the door as a satisfied customer made his way home. Asuma opened the door, and everyone filed in. Naruko's eyes widened in awe, she had never been to a restaurant before, and the place smelled incredible. The owner noticed the group and walked over to greet them. Hello, everyone. I'm Shinji Hondo. Asuma, I'm happy you could bring everyone. Yeah, I've been wanting to treat everyone, but this is the first time we've all had time off together, Asuma replied. Well, I'm glad you all could make it. Follow me, I'll show you to your table. Shinji led them to their reserved spot, where the table was already set for everyone. It was large enough to fit everyone comfortably. Naruko sat in the middle, facing the door. Kakashi sat to her left, and Anko sat to her right. Guy took the end seat beside Anko, while Ibiki sat at the other end, next to Kakashi. Asuma sat across from him, followed by Kurenai, Genma, and Reidu. Once everyone was seated, the server came over with menus and took their drink orders. After the drinks were delivered, the group took their time deciding what to eat. Several trays of pizza later, filled with laughter and conversation, everyone was finally full, and it was time to head home. Naruko was taken to the restroom before they left. As they walked back down the street, many villagers ignored the group as they made their way through the village, though some glared with disapproval. One man tried to approach Naruko, but Ibiki acted quickly, pinning the man against a wall before he even realized what had happened. The man was threatened and then released, and Ibiki rejoined the group as if nothing had occurred. When they reached the edge of the village, everyone said their goodbyes. Kakashi and Naruko left first, Kakashi picking her up and running through the trees. Asuma and the others followed, slipping away into hiding behind dumpsters and alleyways. They waited quietly, and before long, a group of villagers appeared, seemingly intent on approaching Kakashi and Naruko. However, they were intercepted by Asuma's group, who quickly taught the villagers a lesson in kindness and civility. Later, Kakashi carried Naruko into the house. Naruko fought sleep, exhausted from the day's adventures, but she wasn't ready to close her eyes just yet. She had something important to say to her big, wonderful brother before she did. Kakashi walked up the stairs with Naruko in his arms, amused by her determination to stay awake. Hey, little one, Kakashi said softly. Maybe it's time to let the sleep win. I'll still be here when you wake up. Kashi? Yeah? I love you, Naruko murmured. And thank you for today. I had so much fun with everyone. Kakashi stopped for a moment, halfway down the hall to her bedroom. He looked down at his little sister, a warmth growing in his heart. He had done the right thing today. Reaching up, Kakashi lowered his mask, wanting Naruko to see the smile that stretched across his face. You're welcome, little one, Kakashi replied, his voice full of warmth. I love you too. To my beloved YouTube family. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your support. Anime Octopus.